Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is today, and welcome back. I hope that your weekend was just outstanding, and you're returning refreshed, restored, and ready to go. We got some serious business to attend to today. We had some fireworks, little missile attack going on over there today in Qatar, and we'll get into it. But hopefully peace is on the horizon because we got a bunch of posts from the president, all in the aftermath, that we're excited to go through. We hope that this is the end of the war. We're already sick of it. It's been 48 hours and we're over it. So we got that coming up. We'll spend a little time on that. I got some reaction from Mike Johnson. And earlier, I think yesterday, we were here yesterday on Sunday. Thank you to those who joined us. That was an interesting one. I was referencing this. I couldn't find it at the time, but it was this apparently inside look inside Fordow. And so I wanted to play that because we forgot about that yesterday. But we got some updates from the president, bunch of stuff here that Trump has posted that we'll parse through together and hopefully find peace at last. It's time for peace. So hopefully that is the case. It's a little bombing, then a little peace. You gotta go in the sequence though. We also got Mike Johnson. He got asked about this today, just a couple hours ago. So we'll see what he said. And of course, see what your comments are on all of this because there's a lot happening out there that we'll come back to. Then we got this update on the Kilmar case that we will go through and look at this. My goodness. So they're turning him into, I think, Jesus or something. Pretty sure that's a halo from heaven. Kilmar, illegal alien, and they're breaking him out of jail, which is where he belongs. I guess because he's a union member. What union is that? MS-13. Yeah, we know. So there's a battle about keeping him in custody based on his criminal charges. And we got some updates on that because a judge came out and ordered him released over the weekend. And we'll go through a little bit of it. It's a 51-page screed from some judge called Barbara. And so we'll check in on it. Trump is already appealing this and saying, we want you to stay this release order. You're going to let this illegal alien criminal who's been charged with human trafficking and allegations of smuggling children at the base of the car, right? Trafficking them into America, making 100 G's a year doing so. You're going to release him? They said, yeah, because he's better than everyone else. He gets extra due process. Not only the presumption of innocence, but triple the presumption of innocence. So presumed that judges will now write 51 pages to write on your behalf because the judges are just as partisan, as biased as they come. We'll go through it. We got some updates here about what happened in the hearing. There was a hearing, of course, federal court, so we can't see inside, but the New York Times reported on what went down last week after the hearing was over. That, of course, has brought us to this position today. And so we'll go through that. Now, this is Trump's appeal. So he has said, basically a motion for a stay. And then I think he is also simultaneously appealing it is what I've read. Haven't seen the filings yet, but we'll see and there's a hearing on Wednesday. So there's a lot cooking. So we'll come back to that. All right. So then we got a couple clips of Bondi. Bondi was out today testifying in front of Congress saying she's trying to keep criminals in jail. Judges keep letting them out, trying to deport people, but the judges won't let us. It's ridiculous. All right. So we got some clips from Pam because she got into it with a couple of Congress people, including this one and this one, who we know is Deloro from Connecticut with the hair. So we got some Bondi updates, some Iran stuff, and a bunch of good stuff to get to. And my friends, what a beautiful day it is. Thank you for being here. And hope you're doing well with all the war stuff going on, or not war, whatever position you're taking out there. It is contentious, no doubt about it, but we're glad that you're here. We've got some stuff to talk about. Now, we had a great members only stream this morning. So this morning, we talked about a lot of other fun things. We want to encourage you to become a member. If you're looking to hang out in the morning, peruse the day. We check in on what else is cooking, see what is kind of hot in the morning. And we'd love to have you as a member. You can join on YouTube, you can join on Locals, and we'll see you in the after party, and we'll see you tomorrow on the members only stream. we appreciate our members for supporting us here and making what we do possible. Thank you for that. So we also want to get into business. So here it is from the president. The heck just happened? That really kind of messed. It's a good thing I didn't start it right there. It's just refreshed on us. It's not what we wanted. Now here, this is what we want. Right here. Oh, it's my fault. It's time for peace. The president declares, congratulations, world. We have succeeded. It is now time for peace after a tumultuous 48 hours or so, and we're glad to be here. The president dropped a couple other comments here saying, the sites that we hit in Iran were totally destroyed, and everyone knows it. So for the conversation that we were having yesterday about whether or not totally obliterated, completely destroyed, had somehow morphed into severely damaged, which had turned into, now we don't know where the uranium is, and all of those things. Trump is now doubling down. Totally destroyed. Okay, so stop your walking back of this. And everyone knows it. Only the fake news would say anything different in order to try and demean as much as possible, and even say they were pretty well destroyed. Working especially hard on this falsehood is Allison Cooper of Fake News CNN. Oh, Allison. Dumb Brian L. Roberts, chairman of Comcast, Johnny Carl of ABC Fake News, and always the losers of, again, Comcast, NBC Fake News. It never ends with the sleazebags in the media, and that's why their ratings are at an all-time low. Zero credibility from the president. Also posting this, I'd like to thank the highly respected Emir of Qatar for all that he has done in seeking peace for the region. Regarding the attack today at the American base in Qatar, I am pleased to report that, in addition to no Americans being killed or wounded, very importantly, there have also been no Qataris killed or wounded. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And lastly, from the president, he says, Iran has officially responded to our obliteration of their nuclear facilities with a very weak response, which we expected and have very effectively countered. There have been 14 missiles fired, 13 were knocked down, one was set free because it was headed in a non-threatening direction. I am pleased to report that no Americans were harmed and hardly any damage was done. Most importantly, they've gotten it all out of their system. And there will hopefully be no further hate. I want to thank Iran for giving us early notice. Thank you for letting us know this was going to happen, which made it possible for no lives to be lost and nobody to be injured. Perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region, and I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Donald Trump, President of the United States of America. And getting it out of their system, it reminds me of, wrestling match or jiu-jitsu or a bar fight or whatever. Two guys are just going to duke it out for a minute. One is going to clearly outclass the other. Sometimes that other guy is unexpectedly outclassed. I'm going to take this guy, and then guys knows jiu-jitsu backflips and, all the things, and destroys you. And okay, well, now I know better, right? And you don't have to kill the other person at the conclusion of those battles. You just shake hands, fist bump. Hey, man. Good one. Not going to do that again. You're getting choked out. You're tapping out because that person is much more skilled than you. And so Trump's saying they got it out. They had to do their little flail, the little temper tantrum, not, throw some things back. You expect more skirmishes, but we're done. It's over. They're done. We're done. Hopefully we now have peace. So the New York Times is also confirming what Trump said about the forewarning that came out from the Iranians. We got this coming from the other side, right? So Trump is confirming this, but the other side is doing the same, saying 3 Iranian officials familiar with the plans said that Iran gave advance notice that attacks were coming as a way to minimize casualties. The officials said Iran symbolically needed to strike back at the U.S., but at the same time carry it out in a way that allowed all sides an exit ramp. They described it as a similar strategy to 2020, when Iran gave Iraq a heads up before firing ballistic missiles at an American base in Iraq following the assassination of Soleimani, the top general back then. So 5 new updates from the Times saying airspace is reopened. They announced the reopening of Qatar's airspace hours after Iran launched a missile attack. Okay, we're back. A Defense Department official said intercepted 13. They were knocked down. So hopefully that's the end of it. We'll, of course, see. Now, it looked pretty menacing. Benny Johnson brought this to our attention over from GMI, saying this is what the footage looked like. So I don't know how accurate that is, because that looks like a lot more than 13 missiles coming across, or 14 of them. But that is being shared around today, so I don't know how accurate it is from GMI. But that's essentially, probably close to that. If that's not exactly it, probably close to that. So, of course, that is happening. This was the image, or the video rendering rather, that I wanted to share with you previously when we were asking what was actually under there, right? And this was a rendering that came out over from the open source Intel account over on X. You can see down in the bottom, you've got some watermarks there from the Intel lab. Orion Int also put a watermark there. And so this is what this looks like. No audio on it. So we're zooming in, and looks like, even from an angle like that, right, it kind of looks like that's where the missiles hit. All right, so here it comes through. We see and peer inside. Maybe the bunker busters went whoop, right there, right into that main artery and region over here. We've got enriched equipment, backup power supplies, control rooms, recreation and offices, and that's essentially what it looks like. So very interesting. I'll let that play through so we can see it nice and fluidly. No longer in existence. And we are now at the moment of peace, which of course is what we all want. So that is what's happening. Mike Johnson got asked about this today, and here's what he said.
Interests overseas, and there's a risk of a regional war.
The president warned them not to retaliate, but he was also very clear that the threat of Iran obtaining nuclear capability is a threat not just to Israel and the Middle East, but to the United States as well. They've been very clear about their intentions and how much they hate us. Remember that Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism. All the proxies that have done such great harm to Americans over the years are at their behest. They were working on that, and the president made an evaluation that the danger was imminent enough to take his authority as commander-in-chief and make that decision.
Why not have the past couple of months we've had so many strikes
on soil here? We've had so many strikes here on U.S. soil, attacks against Jews in Boulder and here in Washington, D.C., Governor Shapiro. Do you think that this threat is so serious now, just not at anti-Semitic attacks here, but there's a grave concern about somebody being triggered doing something here in the United States in response to what happened?
Well, we've been in a heightened threat scenario for quite some time, and it's something that we're very vigilant about, as is law enforcement throughout the country, and of course our federal agencies. We get briefings on this routinely, and we know where the threats are and the assessments, but it's a heightened period, of course. Members are concerned about that, as you know. Some of our Jewish members in particular have been targeted, even in recent days, by crazed people. We're going to prosecute those folks to the full extent of the law, and we're going to do everything we can within our power to make sure members are safe and free to do their jobs. There's a number of resources available for protection in that regard, and we're researching other avenues to make sure everyone who serves the public can do so in a safe manner.
Why not have Congress vote on Iran? Why not have this, given that you're the imminence of this threat?
So look, there's been so much talk ranging from AOC suggesting this is an impeachable offense, which is just absolute nonsense, to people suggesting that Congress should dither over this. Look, the Commander-in-Chief has Article 2 responsibilities. They're very serious and important, especially in times like this. I think he used that authority judiciously. I think this Commander-in-Chief means what he says what he means, and he's trying to protect American assets and personnel. We have 40,000 servicemen, men and women over there in that region, and they were in imminent danger, as was our allies in Israel, and as were we. Remember, the international body that is supposed to be monitoring Iran's nuclear program determined in May that they were days away from having capability. That is
Will you allow Massey's War Powers resolution to come to the floor?
I don't think this is an appropriate time for a War Powers resolution, and I don't think it's necessary. Listen, for 80 years, presidents of both parties have acted with the same Commander-in-Chief authority under Article 2. You had President Biden used 3 times in Middle East operations.
Obama dropped bombs on 7 different countries over his 8 years. We ran through the list this morning on the members only stream. Lots of bombs, tens of thousands of bombs all over the place this entire time. they gave him a Nobel Peace Prize.
President Obama went on an 8-month campaign bombing Libya to take down the regime there. I never heard a Democrat balk about any of that. And suddenly now they're just up in arms. It's all politics. This is not a time for politics. This is a very serious
regime change in Iran.
Missiles at U.S. base in Qatar and Iraq, reportedly. Should the U.S. respond to those attacks?
We're monitoring that very closely. I got a classified briefing on all this early this morning. This is the retaliation that was expected. So far, so good. No casualties, so far as we know. And I know that the national security team is in the Situation Room even as we speak, and they're monitoring this.
Do you think it's symbolic? Is that your view?
I'm not gonna comment on it because I don't want to affect any of these events.
But do you think the president should respond? Should the president respond to
It's
this?
up to the commander in chief. I mean, he sent a very clear message that they should not. He wanted Iran to come back to the negotiating table in good faith. The problem is they weren't there in the first place. So we could never
Big beautiful bill. We're here until.
All right, so that is from Mike Johnson. Not going to have more power
They finish
stuff. Not going to have any impeachment stuff. So on the other end of the equation, sounds like they're about to wrap it up too. Hopefully that is the case, and we can have peace at last without worrying about a nuke going off in America. And we're all better off for that. All right, so that's happening. Now let's talk about this case and get into some legal affairs and some legal business, because our own country is being ripped away from us because of these lunatic judges. And here is another one from the courts. A federal judge now ordering what I think is St. Kilmar released from custody. He is now being hailed as a hero, a union member with a halo glowing behind his head like St. Peter or something, being ripped out of jail, unlawfully incarcerated by Satan dictator Trump. And it's all because he's a union member, which we know means MS-13 member. Now, what's curious is we don't see any MS-13 gang signs on this dude's hand. I wonder, that must not be Kilmar's hand, who's reaching around and pulling the jail open, because it would have said MS-13 on there, or at least the markings of it, a skull and the other things. So that is what they're doing for this person, who we know, we've read here on the show, and we have an entire research file for this guy at watcherlodge.com, where we watched and read through multiple documents filed by his wife saying that he was violent, threatening her, and in many cases assaulting her. We've got multiple witnesses in a filed criminal complaint against Kilmar, all explaining that he trafficked illegal aliens, including children, trafficked kids across the borders. And the judge is now going to order him to be freed and released because he has more rights and privileges than any other citizen in America. You get charged with a crime by the DOJ, you're not going to get your case looked at like this by a judge. You're not an illegal alien. You're just some dude from wherever, from Arizona. No one cares. You're a citizen. Get out of here. But if you're an illegal, you'll get judges that come out and bend over backwards. This is going to be to a Judge Barbara D. Holmes. Very little information about her because she's a magistrate judge, not a Senate-confirmed judge. She is the lower level judge handling the preliminary matters before she hands it up off to the actual federally appointed district judge, which will be Waverly David Crenshaw. But in the meantime, she can cause a ruckus, and she's done that. She actually wrote 51 pages on this crap saying Kilmar is essentially an innocent man and a victim of Trump, and he's just, he's been violated, and he is just fearful of pupusa attacks down in El Salvador or whatever. So NPR is doing the hagiography. He's not even dead. They're turning him into a saint. Remember when they did this for like Obama? Did Obama traffic humans? I don't know. But here, a federal judge in Nashville ruled on Sunday that he can be released on bail, but he's not going to walk free, not yet. The judge, Barbara Holmes, magistrate judge, said he's going to be released while this case is pending, at least as to this case. Remember, the immigration holds, and that there's a whole separate area of the law that also has jurisdiction and custody over him. So this may not mean he's getting out, but at least related to his criminal case, it sounds like the judge is saying you're afuera. Now, in her ruling, she wrote, the government failed to prove that he was a flight risk. We'll go through some of this. Oh, was that some stupid thing from NPR to save us? No, because you write articles that look like this. Defund them and all of them for this type of garbage. He's not a saint. He's an illegal invader in our country who's here illegally on multiple regards. So what's happening here is NPR is doing their little puff piece. The case, of course, has been heard as it stands right now by Barbara D. Holmes. And this is what she has written for us. Now, I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because it's going to be, there's a request for a stay. There's another hearing coming out on it on Wednesday, and we'll come back on it. But here is what she wrote, explaining why Kilmar is an innocent man who is being victimized. Says, perhaps the sole circumstance about which Trump and the government and Abrego may agree is that he's going to remain in custody regardless of the outcome of this case. Okay, so he's not going to get out because Homeland is not letting him out. Either he's going to remain in custody of the Attorney General or he's going to remain in the custody of ICE because he's going to have removal proceedings that I don't have jurisdiction over. Okay, so like, is he going to be running around out there with Kilmar and Khalil? It's like a band or a bad sitcom. Illegal Palestinians, all in one household. Incredible. This suggests the court's determination of the detention issues is little more than an academic exercise. So then why are you going to go through it? Oh, because she's going to give guideposts. She's going to write a defense brief for the defense team in these 51 pages. If you've ever known or been through anything like this yourself, and I've represented many people through this process, the idea that you would get a judge that would articulate all of this on behalf of a defendant is ridiculous. This is obviously political, especially when it's inconsequential. That suggestion is understandable, but the foundation of the administration of criminal law depends on the bedrock of due process. So Barbara is going to give us her screed. And that due process demands that every person charged with a federal crime be afforded the presumption of innocence unless proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and that the deprivation of that individual's liberty prior to trial, blah, 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 we got it. Abrego also deserves due process, and he's getting it. And he already got it, by the way, multiple times. He got it during his first removal proceedings. He got it during his appeal. He got it during his withholding of removal proceedings. And he got it upon his most recent removal too, before they removed him. They thought he was going to Guatemala. He ended up in El Salvador, and then they freaked out about it. They said, you can't send him to El Salvador. Turns out you could if you would have just read the actual order. In the conclusion of the order from Judge David Jones on October 19th, 2019, he wrote, Guatemala is where the family is. That's where the pupusa business was, and that's where they were under attack, so they couldn't send him to Guatemala, but they could send him to El Salvador, and so they didn't violate the order. As required by the Bail Reform Act, the court has reviewed the evidence, and the government's motion for detention, this is for you, America, is denied. This illegal alien, wife-beating, human trafficking person who was lawfully removed from our country, who got let go by the FBI when he was in the middle of a crime, committing an active crime. Not a small crime. He wasn't stealing a candy bar. He was trafficking humans. They caught him. They let him go. He got extra due process there. Talk about a presumption of innocence, huh? Specifically, the court finds no detention hearing is authorized under the Bail Reform Act because the government failed to prove that this case involves a minor victim. The government hasn't met the statutes. What is a minor victim? And there isn't a serious risk that Abrego will flee because his wife's here. He's got a new baby with her. And there's a serious risk that Abrego will obstruct justice or otherwise interfere. It's not real. Now, even if, however, the government was entitled to a detention hearing, the court would still conclude that you haven't met your burden, even if we came back and did a hearing. The strength of the factors weigh in favor of releasing Abrego. Now, they say he's charged via indictment, which we read through here. They brought him back to the United States. They said, all right, he's been indicted. So you want him back returned? He's returned. Now, the government in its original filing didn't articulate the specific grounds for his detention. And so we gave him a full hearing and he reviewed the case with his attorney and all the things. Now, she says, to be clear, what Kilmar has been charged with is human smuggling, not human trafficking. Oh, so now she's like writing this for the defense. Although smuggling and trafficking were sometimes used interchangeably during the detention hearing, there's a difference under the law. We distinguish between these. She's going through the policy manual to explain the difference. Human trafficking and human smuggling are often confused. Don't know if this came up at the hearing or not. At the detention hearing, the government said that Special Agent Peter Joseph and the following admitted exhibits: body camera of the traffic stop, a screenshot of the camera footage, a passenger roster, his testimony. Okay, so they brought in body camera footage and not the actual cop. It was an ICE agent talking about the body camera footage, it sounds like. Says a passenger roster from the traffic stop. All right, we need names and IDs of everybody in the vehicle. A Snapchat screenshot between Abrego and a cooperator, and an August 2020 temporary order of protection against Abrego, filed by the wife probably. And another one, temporary protection order against Abrego from May, right? These are the two times that he was beating and violating his wife and her kids. Abrego offered his brother as a third-party custodian. Well, I'll go stay with my bro. He's here. And by submission of a sworn declaration, additionally admitted by Kilmar's team, were an immigration court memo and an order granting Abrego's withholding of removal. Order granting, like, I would like to see that. And by the way, I've emailed Kilmar's team for that document. They will not send it to me. And if it was filed as part of a public record, why wouldn't they just send it to me? If you have an order. So, by the way, and the order granting withholding of removal is for Guatemala. It's not for El Salvador. So I want to see a withholding of removal for El Salvador, which I don't think exists. Otherwise, it'd be already filed. A letter from CASA in support of Abrego, which is another illegal alien organization that facilitates the invasion of our country. Having read all the evidence and considered the parties' arguments, the judge is going to find the following. She goes, the Bail Act, Bail Reform Act is, here's all the law for that. We can fast forward through it, the rules section. Given this hearing informality, the plain language of the Bail Reform Act, man, it's like the defense attorneys can just take this and just copy and paste it. So now, after all of those rules and all of that analysis, which are going to be inconsequential because he's not getting out anyways, the government maintains we need to detain him because there's a serious risk that Abrego is going to obstruct justice, intimidate somebody, or flee. And now I need to ask myself the following questions, writes this judge. Preponderance of the evidence. It means whether something has more convincing force or something is more likely than not to be true. So when we talk about this, we often will use percentages. So beyond a reasonable doubt might be, 80, 90, depending who you ask. A prosecutor will say it's like 80%. If you're like 80% sure, that's beyond a reasonable doubt. A defense attorney is going to be like, are you kidding me? It's like 99.99999%. If you have like 1.01 of reasonable doubt, the phrase says any reasonable doubt, any, a little hair follicle of doubt, that's a not guilty. So it just depends who you ask. But you'll hear that phrase, like 80 to 100. Then lower preponderance of the evidence will be like 51%. You'll hear a lot of judges say, well, it's basically 50-50. So if we're going to call it a tie, like in a civil traffic ticket case or something, then they'll just say, well, we'll give it to the defense. I used to have a judge in Mesa, Arizona, sorry about that, judge, who's very reasonable on that regard. He's like, well, it's pretty close. Tie goes to the defense. I'm like, love you, judge. Did a lot of photo radar tickets out there early in my career in Mesa, Arizona. You guys know what it is. You know what's going on out there. Yeah, anyways, digression. The government has a principal basis for a detention hearing as indicated by the evidence presented at the detention hearing is that Abrego is charged with a felony that is not otherwise a crime. And so what is a minor victim? So this is all like defense statutory analysis that she's writing. And the government's evidence of a minor in the vehicle is body camera footage of the stop and documentary evidence of a roster that a responding officer obtained from the vehicle occupants, which sounds like pretty dang good evidence to me. Body camera footage of a kid in the car and a passenger list. What else do you want? And Special Agent Joseph's testimony included restated testimony or interview statements of cooperating witnesses about other alleged instances involving minors. So in a nutshell, judge says, the government contends that involves as used here must be construed, and the evidence that minors were in the vehicle satisfies involvement, right? Follow the ball. Now, the government further says that any minor in the vehicle, when he was transporting illegals, she calls them undocumented persons, was a victim due to what the government contends is inherently dangerous nature of the transportation because the kids were down on the floors so they could stack more bodies. Abrego, not surprisingly, disagrees, obviously. He says, well, I was like cousins of mine. Involves a minor victim. They say, no. It's not involves. It means requires, like the crime requires, like it's a minor is necessary to the commission of the crime. It's like, oh, well, you're doing this thing and it happens to be a minor. It's saying, oh, no, you are doing this thing to a minor. And if it's not to a minor, then it's not that thing. Abrego essentially says that for a felony to involve a minor victim, harm to a minor victim must be necessary. So the fact that you just shoved a kid down in the floor during interstate transportation from Texas to Maryland, see if you can get away with a speeding ticket and a seatbelt ticket and no registration and no license as a citizen driving across this country. Are you kidding me? You get ransacked by the cops out there. Shout out to the Highway Patrol. Abrego further argues that the government's theory of a victim doesn't apply here. So what? There's no minor that actually suffered harm. So what if we shove them under the seats? Big deal. Before reaching the question of the meaning of minor victim, the court's like going to like this whole full analysis on this. Boy, I got us. All these charges look like they're pretty bad. The government relies mainly on the case out of the Second Circuit, saying, well, that case was involving a firearm. There's no firearm here, so that case is not perfectly applicable. And there's no per se detention rules based on the allegation of a criminal enterprise. So your allegations that he's a gang member, we're going to deal with those too. And nevertheless, the government also says involves could be stuff that is attributed to Abrego. But there's a bunch of potholes in here. If you go this way, then it's a pretty wide expanse. What if there's another case where somebody transported seafood from Oregon to Florida? Would that count? What if he had children in the vehicle without seatbelts during the entire 42-hour trip with only infrequent stops? Does that involve a minor? If some dude, I guess. What is she saying? This judge is nuts. She is giving us an analogy of an illegal alien who has an extra large vehicle with an added row in the back cargo space so he could stack bodies back there of other illegals because he was getting paid by the body like cattle. Just fling them in here. Come on in here, $1,000 a head. These are looking pretty good. Yeah, they've got some good meat on them. All right, throw them in there. And then he traffics them through, stacks the kids on the floor, according to testimony, and gets extra from them. Meanwhile, he's grabbing all of the women he has to get talked to by his fellow compadres who were doing the invasion with us. She's comparing that to some father who transports his kids and they're not wearing a seatbelt the entire time, which is not appropriate either. So are we going to charge him with transportation of a minor for intent to traffic illegal seafood? What's the seafood analogy? They're trafficking kids, lady. Or a charge of interstate travel to evade a child support obligation. Does that involve a minor? Are the minors victims? Well, these are questions that we have, and I don't know. So on the other hand, Abrego's relying on this other case, and this other case supports him. And so we find that this involve and this dictionary definition is much better. Involve means necessarily entails, and it can mean necessarily entails. Not that it does mean, it can mean it. So she went and found the definition for what involve works for her. And just because it says involve doesn't mean like it's any involvement. The kid has to like lose a finger or something. In short, the question of what Congress means by involves means more than related to, and it's something less than necessarily entails. But for what it stands here, Abrego moving kids in his vehicle illegally and transporting them into the country is not involving a minor because this judge wants more of that to happen. Clearly. She says the essence of the government's proof of another case that it involves a minor child is an individual who occupied the vehicle was allegedly a minor at the time. The testimony of Joseph of hearsay statements which this is not a criminal trial. We're not in the middle of a trial. We're in a hearing, anyways, of a cooperating witness that Abrego typically traveled to his own children. So in other words, yeah, it's an out-of-court statement, but we're talking about detention. We're not talking about a criminal conviction. Do you want them to bring in the original cop? I'm sure they can go do it, go find that guy. But you would do that at a trial. Like, is this enough, Judge? Like, do you find his testimony credible or whatever? No, she doesn't. Calls it hearsay. All right, well, it's a detention hearing. So, in transporting undocumented persons from Texas to other parts of the country, Agent Joseph testified that during a traffic stop, one of the responding Tennessee troopers obtained from all the individuals their name and date of birth. A photograph of the roster was admitted as evidence. There it is. Cop says right there, boom. Each individual added their own name. One individual's date of birth is right here. If accurate, that would mean the individual was born in 2007 and had just turned 15, shortly before the traffic stop. Wonder if it was female, wonder if he was grabbing her. 2007. Now, although the ordinary rules of evidence, thanks, Judge, including hearsay, generally do not apply in the detention hearing context, derp, then why'd you make a big deal about it up here? Well, they're hearsay. Yeah, of course. We're in a detention hearing. Although they don't apply, right, no kidding, the court must still assess the nature and the accuracy. So now I'm going to say that they're hearsay and dismiss them. In the court's view, there is a direct correlation between evidence, but the more critical the evidence is, the more reliable it has to be. Here, the court finds that the origination of the roster, so the photo that we just saw, and the circumstances creating it are so remote and attenuated. This is wild. So remote and attenuated from the homeland testimony that it cannot be given any conclusive weight for what it's offered by the government. Like it's made up. Like she's like, it's made up. I can't tell where it came from. I don't know who wrote it. The exhibit the government relies on is a photograph taken by a trooper, not by the agent. So that's hearsay. Okay, bring the trooper in. Of a document prepared at the request of Trooper Foster, second layer of hearsay. By the occupants of the vehicle driven by Abrego, a third layer of hearsay. Crazy. While the body camera footage, which is itself hearsay, including the passing around of a paper, the detail of the roster is visible only briefly in the body camera footage. A still shot of the roster detail from the body camera footage was also admitted. She's like, it's not good enough evidence. This is not conviction beyond a reasonable doubt, right? She just explained to us what the standard was. We just read it. Preponderance of the evidence, right? 51% more likely than not. Got a bunch of evidence that seems to lean one way. If you put it on a scale, which way is it going to go? Clearly, the most reliable evidence of the accuracy would be the testimony of the individual who wrote down that information. Yeah, who is that guy? Special Agent Joseph testified that although we have identified and located 6 of the 9 of the other people in the vehicle, they have not located the individual who was 15, because that person has now been trafficked to Epstein's second island. Absent that individual's testimony, the next most reliable source would be Trooper Foster. So the judge says, I need to hear from the person who is a minor before I find by preponderance of the evidence that this case involves a minor according to my fake definition of involvement. And she's going to say that they haven't met that standard. She's setting an impossible standard for them to meet. So you want us to go bring the actual victim in here and have them come testify to you before you'll consider that? Nope. Well, can't have that. Okay. Gone. That person's been trafficked. Maybe Kilmar can give us some information on who that person is. Oh yeah, he probably has no idea because that person is probably gone. If subject, subject to the examination, if we can't find that person, we need Trooper Foster. Okay. If Foster could be asked whether he considered the birth year to be reasonable based on the observation of the individual who provided that information. So there's no, he just wrote the year down, but he could have just been making up a year. Did it look like a grandma or not? Did the passenger look like a 15-year-old? Was he shaving yet? Was it a him? Was he of slight build? But Trooper Foster was not offered as a witness. This judge is like demanding trial standards, right? They can cross-examine him on all those things and ask him about all of those things. But this is not a trial. This is a detention hearing. You're allowed to have hearsay. It's just 51%. It's a super low standard, the lowest. According to Special Agent Joseph, the body camera was purged from other footage and is no longer available. And Joseph also tested, because it's old, which is what the FBI wanted, which is why they let him go. Foster took photographs of the passports, which would have confirmed the accuracy of the birth date. However, even though the photograph of the roster was produced, the photograph of the passports cannot be located. Yeah. Because it's a cold case, the FBI says go, let him go. Now, additionally, defense counsel for Kilmar said that the 7 looks like a 1. So it is actually a 1. It's not a 7, it's a 1. So that person is actually much older. So it's definitely not a minor. Here, there's another, so the judge is doing handwriting analysis now. Unbelievable, on the document. So, well, look, there's another typo over there. The photograph of the roster is crucial evidence. And the government's request for a detention hearing, it's not saved by anything else. So the evidence is bad. Now, Joseph testified that the male cooperators said they've got other people who have been cooperating with the government who say Abrego took children with him on trips at which he was already smuggling undocumented people. The first female cooperator testified to also having knowledge of this conduct. Importantly, each cooperating witness stands to gain something, right? So their testimony is also biased. So the cop's a moron. He can't write the documents right. Abrego's witnesses, who were co-conspirators, all say, yeah, he brought kids everywhere. It was like a cover for him. That's not good enough either. The first cooperator, because they're going to get a deal out of this. So like they're all biased, this judge says. And they're going to be granted work release. Second cooperator is also an avowed member of the human smuggling organization, is also charged with a federal crime. So he'll get benefits from cooperating too. So the judge doesn't believe him either. Well, guess who is also a part of that federal criminal human smuggling organization? Lady Kilmar. The first female cooperator, that's the allegation in the indictment. The first female cooperator is also closely related to the first and second male cooperators. She also testified before a federal grand jury and has been getting deferred or requesting a deal. Special Agent Joseph did not personally interview the first one. Now, the court gives little weight to this hearsay testimony. Crazy. Double hearsay through Special Agent's testimony. We're not going to accept it. Both male cooperators are all biased. No evidence of any minor victims. And so we're going to allow Kilmar to be ordered out. Also says he's not a flight risk. He's got family here, okay? Even though he beats his wife and scares the hell out of the kids, no problem at all. And Special Agent said, yeah, he's going to get a bunch of sentences here, but the case is weak. And the government says that Abrego poses a serious flight risk. They're just speculating. He's also got concurrent proceedings, and the court finds that the undisputed ICE detainer obviates any serious risk of flight. So because ICE is going to detain him, there is no risk of flight? So she can let him go and not have to consider it? They're unable. There's no merit in that. He is not a flight risk because there's no idea that he's going to flee. For all these reasons, they have not shown he's a flight risk or that he's going to attempt to obstruct justice because he's just an innocent union man who is basically like Jesus now. Says the nature and the seriousness of danger. Lastly, he's going to be fine. The conditions of release are intended to guarantee community safety, or not entirely exactly that, but serve to mitigate the risk of dangerousness. And so for these reasons, Kilmar is ordered released, and Trump's and the DOJ's motion for detention is denied. Now, the United States can review this order under the law signed by Barbara D. Holmes, Kilmar gangbang lover, United States magistrate judge. And we've covered many criminal cases here. You've seen many judges write opinions on this. She is gift wrapping a defense attorney memo and assisting them through this case in a way unlike anything we've ever seen before. I mean, pick a case, whether it's, could you imagine the judge in the Ghislaine Maxwell case writing something like this for Ghislaine Maxwell? She wasn't actually trafficking children. What's the definition of a children? What's the age? Did anyone look at her license plate? Who's the person that's arresting that person for Ghislaine Maxwell? No one cared. I mean, she got indicted, rightfully so. In fact, they didn't. Maybe that's the whole thing. Maybe she was the only person who wasn't in our country illegally. That's why everybody else got away scot-free, because they're all illegal aliens like Kilmar. So she writes that. Now, it's a pretty reprehensible thing, obviously, because it is insane. And Trump is now asking for a stay of that. Now, the United States of America responded. They said, in support of our motion for a stay, we submit to you that back on June 6, Kilmar was arrested on an indictment brought forward by the grand jury, and we moved for detention. Then on June 13th, Judge Holmes held a hearing to address the government's motion. And at the hearing, the United States admitted into evidence footage from a traffic stop conducted by the Tennessee Highway Patrol back in 2022, which showed that Kilmar was driving a Suburban registered to a convicted alien smuggler and carrying 9 additional passengers, including 2 in an aftermarket back row where he stuffed the bodies. None of the passengers had any visible luggage or construction. During the traffic stop, Kilmar told the trooper that he and the passengers were coming from doing construction in St. Louis, but obviously they weren't. One trooper asked the passengers to write down their names and their birthdays on a piece of paper, and as depicted from the body camera footage, all appeared to do so. One trooper took a picture of this roster, which was also admitted as an exhibit during the hearing. On the roster, one of the passengers listed his birth as 2007, meaning he was barely 15 years old at the time that he was being trafficked. The government called Homeland Security investigation special agent called Pete Joseph. He came in to testify at the hearing. Among other things, Joseph testified that license plate reader data and cell phone records showed that Kilmar had not been traveling from St. Louis like he told the trooper, nor did it appear that he had been in St. Louis for the preceding 2 weeks, as he also stated to law enforcement. So he's lying. His credibility is shot. The judge doesn't care. Because the vehicle had been captured by LPR data while traveling in Texas, Louisiana, and Georgia in the days prior to the traffic stop. Homeland Joseph also testified that based on the information on the roster and the traffic stop, they were able to confirm several of those passengers were in the country illegally. No kidding. Additionally, 2 of the passengers were also encountered by law enforcement at the southern border just a few weeks before being in Kilmar's car in Tennessee. So Special Agent Joseph, right, all of that, you just stack up where it's preponderance of the evidence. We're not trying to find him guilty yet. Just enough to have a hearing and hold him in detention. Joseph also testified about the statements of interviewed witnesses and co-conspirators, people who were out there alive in custody, now working against this. 4 of whom testified under oath before federal grand juries investigating the matter. Those individuals informed law enforcement that Kilmar had been involved in alien smuggling since approximately 2016, that the conspiracy had transported unaccompanied minors in the testimony, that Kilmar had used his own family members as cover to avoid detection on these trips, and that he was a member of MS-13, that he had occasionally smuggled guns and drugs as well as transporting aliens, and they also stated these other people who were in the conspiracy with him said that Kilmar was aggressive physically with minor females who were being transported, human trafficking of young women, and violating them in the process. The United States submitted into evidence copies of 2 separate protective orders obtained by Jennifer Vasquez, his wife, who's now out there like, we want our man home, which alleged that he had committed multiple acts of domestic violence against her. Yeah, she sounds a lot different now than she did in 2 of those filings. Now, the defense, and she didn't call the cops because she knew he was illegal and a gangbanger, and that's why she covered up his hands in all of their little photos because she couldn't show that he was a gangbanger. The defense offered no live witnesses from anybody. We brought in our evidence. Kilmar didn't present anything. Only admitted an affidavit from a third-party custodian, so someone else wrote a document, which would be hearsay, who did not testify even in the hearing, subject to cross-examination, but our guy did. They also submitted a letter from a social service agency in Maryland, probably CASA, which is an illegal alien NGO invading company, and a copy of his immigration order, which, we've read that. It says Guatemala, not El Salvador. But it still says he's removable, just not to Guatemala. The defense cross-examined the government's witnesses, So we put our guy up and they came after him. But they offered no rebuttal evidence to the allegations described in the hearing at all. Nonetheless, Judge Holmes, Barbara, denied our motion for detention, and she stated she intends to issue a future order directing release conditions. And so we submit this issue is ripe for review, saying the United States has moved for revocation of that order. Whether detention of a defendant pending trial is warranted is a mixed question of law and fact, subject to de novo review. And we'll take this up on appeal. The United States has already requested the expedited preparation of a transcript of the detention hearing to provide to the court as part of the court's consideration of the United States motion for revocation of release order. The United States also anticipates filing a memo in support of that motion with citations to the transcript and legal analysis to explain why this judge is so bad. Kilmar must also have the opportunity to review the transcript and the motion for revocation and the anticipated memo and time to file if they wish. Now, the hearing is scheduled for June 25th, but only to review the conditions of release or other necessary issues. She has already decided to release this person right now. So it's just how we're going to release him is all that's left. But the decision has been made, and so now we can challenge that. So therefore, the United States is requesting a stay of the judge's impending release order. In addition, the United States does say that he is a danger to the community and a flight risk, all of which we talked about in the hearing. The United States notes that because Kilmar has an immigration detainer lodged against him by Homeland as well, he also could face potential deportation from the United States in the near future if Judge Holmes and her release order remains in effect. In other words, if you're not going to keep him here, we might just throw him out again. Granting this motion for stay would return the parties to the status quo, placing them in their respective positions prior to the June 13th hearing about 10 days ago. The United States would submit that the prejudice to Kilmar is limited. He's going to remain in custody either way. So you can settle this issue right now because he's not getting out. So it's not going to harm him more. Most importantly, a stay will give this court an opportunity to conduct a meaningful review of the evidence with little prejudice to Kilmar, who's going to be in custody anyways. So for the foregoing reasons, we ask you to grant our stay and stop the impending order of release. And so we'll see what they do. Now, this is being submitted back to the same court, but we'll see a simultaneous, essentially parallel filing up with the Court of Appeals, which is all hitting right now. So we'll wait for that docket to mature. But that is what came in. And we also saw that Kristi Noem was out talking about what they're doing from their perspective. We're not letting up, right? So Kilmar is battling for kind of freedom. I think it's more of a moral victory more than anything. A lot of them get excited about illegal alien, human trafficking, wife-beating gangbangers getting extra due process. It's like the thrill of their day whenever that happens. But Noem says, we're going to continue the deportations. The border is ours.
Now, we do have a bill that's coming before Congress. I hope everybody will support that will be a necessary resource for CBP. That bill doesn't just have dollars in it to build a wall, which it will. It'll have over $46 billion in it, not just to continue building infrastructure wall, but to give us the surveillance and technology that we need to truly secure the border and every border, not just our southern, but our northern, our maritime borders as well. It also will provide $4.1 billion so that we can hire 5,000 new CBP officers,
nice,
as well as 3,000 new CBP border agents. It also gives us $2.7 billion to CBP so that we can have the surveillance technologies that we need and another $1 billion for our vehicle fleet. It allows ICE to hire 10,000 new officers, which we cooperate every single day to secure our country. And it will also allow us to double our detention capabilities that may be necessary as we do our work. It also will address salary and bonuses, which I think is incredibly important. When you make sure that we take care of our people that work for us, we're taking care of their families. I don't know of anybody that can do their job with excellence if their family is in crisis at home. That's true. Thank you, Kristi Noem, for that. So lots more support coming to the border. Hopefully the deportations can continue and the self-deportations continue as well. And all of the Kilmar associates pack their bags and get out of the country. We also got more. All right, so here is what we saw. We got some Pam Bondi stuff. And I also am seeing there's an announcement of a ceasefire. So we'll see what is happening there
CNN is reporting that as it stands right now. But we got a little bit of Pam Bondi, who got into it today. Pam Bondi in Congress unloading on the Democrats. We've got a couple of clips here, including this one from the blue-haired Rep. Rosa DeLauro. And this was a spicy one, man. Pam Bondi, you can see it, was not happy about what Rep. DeLauro was getting into. And so we'll come back on that. But it opened up nicely with Pam Bondi giving us an update, saying, look, I'm here for the budget requests. We don't want any more corrupt DOJ actions. And so my primary objective is the following. This is Pam Bondi in Congress.
Afternoon, Chairman Rogers, Member DeLauro, and Ranking Member Meng,
What's
and
up, Pam?
distinguished members of the subcommittee. I'm honored to appear before you today to present the President's fiscal year 2026 budget for the Department of Justice. I look forward to working with all of you to ensure continued support for the department and our many critical missions. President Trump's fiscal year 2026 budget proposal totals $34 billion for the Department of Justice. That money will support federal law enforcement as well as our state, local, and tribal law enforcement partners. My primary objective as Attorney General is to return the department to its core mission of keeping Americans safe.
All right, so nice opening statement from Pam. She goes on for about 5 minutes, as is the usual. We'll fast forward through that and get into some more of the spicy exchanges. We had this clipped over via Gunther Eagleman over on X, and he was sharing this one about this battle about the budget. Here's what that sounded like.
Protect law enforcement, but your principal, the president, pardoned every single one on January 6th. It rings hollow when you say these words, that if you spit on a police officer, we're going to go after you. Talk to my friends who are Capitol Police officers who were here, 5 of whom are no longer here.
And why did that happen? It was because of suicide. And Brian Sicknick is also a natural causes death. He wasn't killed because of January 6th, and so she can just relax about all of that. But the part of the problem with what happened on January 6th was that much of it was instigated and enabled by the agents in the crowd and by the security apparatus that was supposed to be there securing the building at the time. We've already talked about the pipe bombs being diversionary tactics. That's why they pulled all the police barricades out. That's why most of the Capitol was left unsecured during one of the most important days in the whole world, where almost everybody of importance was there. They left it wide open. There were protesters who were tapped other cops on the shoulders and let them in. And we went through the Proud Boys trial, by the way, and there were protesters standing there peacefully who testified that they were getting shot in the face from cops on the upper balcony, having their cheeks blown open and bleeding all over the place. So the crowd got rowdy after that occurred, and we have never condoned the violence, but it paled in comparison to the Summer of Love. It pales in comparison to what's happening in LA and every other riot or protest that seemingly has occurred instigated by the left. January 6th was a 4-hour riot, 3 if you're being generous, and they were back in the building voting that night. They were torching cars, ramming trash bins into the fronts of the buildings, throwing Molotov cocktails on the building, lighting stuff on fire, torching vehicles in the middle of Washington Avenue. None of that happened. So you save us the hysterics, lady. Don't take January 6th and turn it into this giant story when it was a pittance in comparison to the damage and the loss of life that is perpetrated by your party.
They are dead. And this administration, and I guess I want to ask you, did you have any advice for the president when he came forward with the blanket pardon on January 20th?
Yeah, do it, because they were victims of a weaponized DOJ who was trying to make examples of them to create a class of disfavored people in this country who just happen to be associated with their political opponent so that they could hang it around him, the president, Trump, like an albatross and disqualify him from all future elections. It was the cleanup for the stolen election. They stole it in 2020. They needed some sort of diversionary tactic, right? the exit plan. They talk about this in the Oceans of movies, right? What's the bump at the very end that's going to cause everybody to leave the building and forget about what happened? Oh, it's an earthquake or whatever they manufacture. Oh, the power goes out, whatever, right? And you need something to change the conversation. So that's exactly what they did. And now they're trying to use that as a cudgel. And by the way, no one cares about January 6th. Maybe some people do, but most don't. And how do we know that? The election, because Trump won.
What advice did you offer the president?
I am never going to talk about conversations, advice in any way.
Were you asked
I'm
for
never
advice?
going to talk about discussions I've had
Because
or have not had.
you'll
If I
remember-
can answer with the President of the United
Yes or no?
States.
Did you give him any advice? Yes or no?
I am not going to discuss any conversations
That's a
that
no.
I have had with it.
And
You just put
your
words in
own
my
word-
mouth. I am not going to
No, I'm
discuss.
going to reveal your own words.
I am
Just a
not
moment.
going to
Please stop.
discuss
Please stop. This is
conversations
my
that
time.
I've had with the President of the United States.
Attorney
You asked
General,
me a question.
I would like to reclaim
and
the
you
last
asked
20
me to
seconds.
answer.
I have asked to reclaim my time. Please put 20 seconds back on the clock.
You have an extra 30.
If the general,
She answered
Yes.
and then answered it again and answered it again with a non-answer. I ask for your consideration of
I'd like some consideration to get those 15 seconds of arguing of time back.
the general
putting time
lady
on.
will let the witness answer the question. We will.
She
proceed.
answered it by saying no. Okay.
So she answered it.
The three hallmarks of this administration are incompetence, corruption, and cruelty. I'm going to focus today on
Wow, great.
corruption.
Wow.
And in my mind, there are two types of corruption.
Great.
Personal,
Great trilogy.
and then the other I'm going to call public, governmental. Attorney General, have you ever been registered as an agent of a foreign principal under the Foreign Agents Registration Act?
I assume you're talking about when I represented the country of Qatar for a very short time.
The
Hold
answer is
on.
yes. No,
Hold
excuse
on.
me.
No.
No.
For anti-human trafficking for the World Cup. Anti-human trafficking
or
for the
no?
World Cup.
Attorney
you can't
General-
put words in my mouth.
No.
They love human trafficking. Their number one hero is Kilmar. They have him wearing halos in their magazines now.
You want to talk about incompetence? You're the one that
Excuse
said
me.
Joe Biden
Yeah.
on PBS was competent. You had to retract those words. So
Mr.
don't
Chairman.
talk to me. Don't insult me
Yeah.
publicly.
This is so discourteous. This is so outside the committee's guidelines.
Oh, pipe down. Quit your crying
Taking
over
a
there.
personal shot at me while swiping at Biden.
Yeah, you're an
Very
idiot.
strange. And
Yeah, you love Joe Biden. You can't have any judgment coming out of your brain. That was perfect pause right there. And you're getting mad at her for getting called out.
very unprofessional of you. The answer is yes or no. And the answer is yes. You were registered as a lobbyist for Qatar. Is that correct? Yes. Never mind. Don't answer. Did you disclose that when you went before for the Senate for confirmation? Yes or no? No, it was not in your documents. The answer is no. President Trump.
This was discussed at my confirmation hearings in detail.
It was it was discussed, but you failed to bring up the conflict that you had. President Trump recently announced he'd accept that $400 million Qatar airplane because it was just prettier than the one he was flying
gonna be a
around
nice
in.
plane, yeah.
Is it true that you gave advice that this was legally permissible? Yes or no?
I will not discuss any advice that my Office of Legal Counsel gives to the President of the United States on any matter.
When you spoke before the Senate, you said you would ask for ethical advice. Did you recuse yourself from that issue?
And talking about unprofessional, you say the President wanted a jet because it's pretty?
Excuse
Come
me.
on, this is a Senate. This is
He
a
said it
congressional
himself.
hearing.
He said it himself.
Oh, okay. So that was an interesting exchange. And now here's another one, because we've got this one is Representative Rosa DeLauro also getting into it with Pam Bondi. And here's what that sounded like representing the great state of Connecticut.
At your confirmation hearing, you asserted that you will do everything in your power to prevent illegal gun runners in our country. Your budget request for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, proposes a cut of 26% below the current level. How can you justify such a massive cut without inevitably weakening ATF's ability to help our state and local law enforcement fight illegal gun trafficking. How many ATF law enforcement officers and industry operations investigators do you anticipate will be lost to attrition as a result of this funding reduction you're proposing?
So, I am a career prosecutor, and I believe in keeping America safe, making America safe. First, what we're doing is ATF is going to be brought over with DEA. Everyone knows, everyone sitting up here, guns and drugs go together. They go together. We're going to make it more efficient. What I will tell you will not be happening is ATF agents will not be knocking on the doors of legal gun owners in the middle of the night asking them about their guns. They're going to be out on the streets. If I can finish, they're going to be out on the streets.
I have three
No,
minutes.
you asked me a question.
I did, and
you asked me a question,
and you haven't
I'm gonna
answered
answer
my
it.
question.
So they're going to be out on the streets working
You haven't
hand in hand
answered my
with
question.
DEA
You
to
haven't
violate.
answered. Mr. Chairman, I'd like an answer to my question. And the question is not being answered. How many ATF law enforcement officers and industry operations investigators do you anticipate will be lost to attrition as a result of the funding reduction you are proposing? You are proposing a 26% cut to ATF for fiscal year 2026, as well as a 4.4% cut to DEA. So you're going to merge the two agencies together, and then you're going to shortchange their resources, so neither one of them will be able to do the job that they have been designed to do. You've got a 34% cut to the high-intensity drug trafficking areas program, no dedicated money at all for the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. So, my view, it's fair to say that the Trump administration proposal shortchanges federal efforts to stop illegal gun trafficking and federal efforts to stop the flow of dangerous illegal drugs like fentanyl.
Is there a
As
question
I was
there?
attempting to answer your question very calmly, unlike you.
Excuse me, Madam Attorney General. Answer yes or no. Tell me what the numbers are. I don't want to hear all of your filibuster about this. Go ahead, please. Tell us the numbers.
So we are reorganizing. ATF agents want to be out on the street.
Okay,
Working
let me
with
answer the
DEA
question for you.
agents.
I'm going to answer it for you. Page. Mr. Chairman, you give me a certain amount of time, and I have a high respect for you, but I don't have to listen, nor do my colleagues have to listen to a filibuster when it's a simple question. But I have an answer to your question.
She's got him riled, man. Pam has him fired up.
Fiscal year 2026 budget, and the performance summary explicitly says, and let me quote, ATF will eliminate 541 industry operation investigators, reducing ATF's capacity to regulate the firearms and explosive industries by approximately
regulate the border.
40% in fiscal year 2026. ATF will perform fewer regulatory inspections. And the department summary goes on to say, and let me quote, ATF anticipates a reduction of approximately 284 support personnel and 186 agents based on historical attrition patterns, and these personnel cuts will impact
Do you have a question?
ATF
Will you stop your
across
filibuster?
various functions, unquote. If the capacity to regulate firearms industry is reduced by 40%, if you are losing 186 ATF law enforcement agents, on top of that, it is clear the direction you are headed with this budget, and that's what it is, isn't it? The proposal will weaken our ability to stop gun trafficking, and it will greatly reduce ATF support for state and local law enforcement that helps them prevent and solve violent crimes. It's a bad proposal.
Do you want to hear my answer in 3 seconds? You mentioned regulatory functions. We will not be having ATF agents go to the doors of gun owners in the middle of the night asking them about their guns, period. They will be out on the streets with DEA, guns and drugs.
How many are gone?
It will be attrition. We are not firing agents. They will be working.
How many
with
have
DEA.
taken attrition?
Can I tell you that they all want to be on the streets? They want to be doing their jobs. They want to be.
But you're getting them
guns.
off the streets.
They want
you're getting
to.
Them off
We're
the
putting
streets.
them on the streets.
And
they want to be working with DEA.
You are getting them off the streets. There is no
efficient.
clear. And Mr.
We
Chairman,
will be
I yield back my
efficient.
time. I yield back my time. Let's get some answers here.
All right, Pam Bondi. So she brought the ruckus today, and you can see they all got sent into a tizzy there on the Democratic side, and we're always glad to see that. So well done, Pam. Of course, we'll keep our eye on the DOJ and Congress and the budget and all the things. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, now if you're just joining us, quick recap. Kept our eye on a little bit of the Iran stuff, and over via Truth Social, Trump is calling for peace. It's time for peace. And we spent some time on that. We also talked about Kilmar, who is now the new Democrat Jesus, Kilmar, who is, I know it's blasphemous, but it's true. I didn't say it. The Democrats did. Look. So that is what we talked about. The judge issued a bizarre memo opinion that you'd only write if you were like a defense attorney for your client, which maybe that's what's happening here. But Trump is going to be asking for a stay on this and appealing it immediately. He's not getting out of custody anyways. Even the judge acknowledges he's going to be wrapped up in immigration. Then we heard a little bit from Pam Bondi. But now, my friends, let's do a quick update and see what else is cooking out there, because we got the 2x2 4-pack panel pulled up. And we got competing statements here. So Fox News reporting ceasefire, but there's new blasts in Tehran moments after Trump announces the ceasefire, over from CNN. And so let's get some audio. Let's check and see what CNN has reporting here.
And Qatar and Iran to tie the final knots and agree on the final conditions of this ceasefire.
All right, and obviously all very significant developments. Paula, of course, all happening as Brock is laying out over several hours.
All right, so here's the latest post from the president. Here's what this one looks like. Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now. Okay, so maybe some of those new missiles were already in the air. Or, we already started the countdown. We already lit the fuse, so it's going to happen. When Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire. And upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful, on the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but didn't and never will. God bless Israel. God bless Iran. God bless the Middle East. God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. And so we got a congressman who is on with Laura Ingraham. Let's go over to that one once I can figure out what I'm doing over here. Boom. And see what he is saying.
Who's been willing to show that if you push him to that level, he will take a decisive action. You've got a Secretary of Defense who actually breathes the warrior ethos and understands the capacity and capability of the greatest armed forces in the world. You had Iran, who thought that we were going to basically sit there and bluff. He thought that we were Obama, who was going to fly in pallets of cash and Swiss francs. He thought that we were the Biden administration, who was going to give him $10 billion in fungible assets, JCPOA, the failed nuclear strategy, and allow them to keep exporting oil. This president was serious. He has been since before his first administration about Iran not obtaining nuclear weapons. And unfortunately, Iran learned a very difficult 12-day lesson that they could have avoided by just coming to the negotiation table, which is what President Trump and our vice president had asked for from the beginning.
Congressman Tim, both of you, thank you very much on this breaking news night.
Thank you, Laura.
Huge, huge news for the country and frankly for the entire Middle East and the world. Coming up, there's never been a more critical time. With this ceasefire,
until this ceasefire comes into force, is an increase of attacks by both sides. Each side will try and get its final achievements, in this war. I believe the Iranians will try to launch as many missiles as possible. The Israelis will try to conduct as many strikes as possible. And when it comes to Iranian threats inside the U.S., this is obviously something that the FBI, I think, has been following on a daily basis, but in the last 12 days, even more. But I have to say, I'm not sure the Iranians, after the last 12 days, the first thing that they'll try to do is to conduct a terrorist attack on U.S. soil. This would be a massive
Don't do it.
Escalation that for sure will lead to more U.S. strikes on Iran, and the country at the moment is not in the best shape.
Well, Paul, also a ceasefire, of course, is not the end to conflict, right? A ceasefire is a ceasefire. And if as Barak lays this out, everybody's doing the most they can, then very much depends what each side succeeds in doing in the next hours, if this all pans out, as to whether it will actually happen.
Absolutely, and you know that every single country in this region is going to be on tenterhooks, because the fact that Qatar could be targeted in that way. I mean, Saudi and the UAE, for example, there's no love lost between them and Iran. Now, in recent months, they've been making overtures to Iran, trying to, lower the tensions. But certainly they know that they could become a target because there are US military bases here as well. It's interesting, with all their condemnations of the violation of Qatar's sovereignty, not one of the countries in the region mentioned US bases. And the fact that it was the US that was targeted. It was almost as though they were trying not to remind Iran that they have, thousands of US troops and this presence here as well. All
right, so I'm reading from CNN right now. Let me share this with you. Says, neither Iran nor Israel has made any comments about a pending ceasefire. The ceasefire will be phased in during the next 24 hours, according to the president's post. We read it. In an interview on Fox that began moments after the president's announcement, J.D. Vance praised Trump for getting the deal across the finish line. Says, we were actually working on that just as I left the White House to come over here. So that's good news, that the president was able to get that across the finish line. Vance also said he read a draft of Trump's post 2 minutes before he went on the air, and that it was a little bit different from what the president had showed me a couple hours ago. But again, I knew that he was working the phones, and I was on the way over here. Vance said, Iran is incapable of building a nuclear weapon with the equipment they have because we destroyed it. Now, an hour ago, Iran issued a new evacuation warning for the suburb of Tel Aviv. And Trump commented on that, right? It's like, well, they got operations in place, so it's going to be 12. They're going to get their final blows in. It's like that dude's coming over to break up the fight. So everyone's like, he's coming. All right, Iran has not received any ceasefire proposal, a senior official says. What? Iran has not received any an hour and a half ago and sees no reasons for one, a senior Iranian official told CNN. That was an hour and 26 minutes ago. Well, when was the president's statement? An hour ago. Well, a lot changes in 26 minutes there, bucko. So that was at 3:02. That was an hour. Well, you get some better information. So the Israeli military also issues a new evacuation warning for Tehran. Said District 7, we're going to operate here. So a lot of stuff happening in the final hours, but this is the latest from CNN. Now, they're still talking over there. They brought in someone else who will now explain.
Thanks so much to all of you. And our breaking news coverage continues here live from the Middle East. We're going to take you live to Tel Aviv. Did Israel agree to the ceasefire that Trump has announced, or was it a surprise? And Iran's supreme leader, we understand, in a bunker with a message tonight for Trump, who keeps talking about regime change. And we are learning incredible new details that we're going to share with you tonight about the top secret U.S. mission to take out Iran's nuclear facilities. One that included a number of decoy flights to throw Iran off. New details this hour.
All right, we're going to go to MSNBC just to
worked in an administration that has had to communicate. I was in the Biden administration in the first year when the president made the decision to pull out of Afghanistan.
Oh, Laura's back.
I think you can.
Agreeing to what will undoubtedly be a historic ceasefire with Israel. Now, we're going to learn more of the specifics and the timing of all of this and bring all of that to you as the details come in. But I thought now would be a good time to re-emphasize two words: America first.
This is a monologue.
The cornerstone of Trump's first two victories, of course, what set him apart from everyone else. Now think of how we arrived at this moment. The story of 20th century America is how we survived a dangerous period of wars and almost wars. And by the 80s, under President Reagan, we became a nation with unparalleled military power and economic power.
All right, let's see what the BBC is doing.
Peace.
Well, it's been interesting in that it's been very hard, even in those private conversations, to really suss out what the president's intentions have been. And I'm not sure really anyone past President Trump really knows his thinking on any particular matter. But more broadly, I think that this is kind of indicative of how the White House manages a lot of foreign policy affairs, and that it kind of maintains strategic confusion, strategic ambiguity about what was going to happen, and then there's abrupt shifts that sometimes are used as kind of a pressure tactic. We've kind of seen some of the same in terms of tariffs and with regards to NATO, and I think this, probably more than anything so far, this administration shows how this White House hopes to use that sort of strategic ambiguity as to their true intentions more than anything else.
We have heard, haven't we, from the Vice President, J.D. Vance. He spoke to Fox News this evening. Just tell us a little bit more about what he said.
Well, I think the main takeaway from what J.D. Vance said is that in the future, if Iran were ever to restart a nuclear program, they would face the same consequences from the U.S. That's been the one thing the Trump administration has been very clear on from day one of Israel's operation in Iran, that under no circumstances does this administration think that Iran having a nuclear program capable of making weapons is a workable option for anyone. So I think they've left in no unclear terms what happens if in the days, weeks, and months after this ceasefire, there's some indication of Iran restarting its nuclear program. I think we would find ourselves very much where we found ourselves again this weekend.
Indeed. And just one more thing. President Trump is due to go to NATO, isn't he, tomorrow? Is he still going to go? There's been some speculation that he may only briefly appear at the summit or may not go at all, because he's not a fan of the alliance at the best of times.
He isn't, but I think especially if this ceasefire holds, he wants to show that he's very much a president in control of foreign policy, of which NATO has been kind of a major topic of discussion up until this point, particularly as it pertains to the war in Ukraine. And as of now, he's very much still going. Of course, things could change very rapidly.
OK, Ben de Busman, thank you very much for bringing us up to date on this breaking story. Well, of course, one of the things that has been at the heart of all of this is Iran's nuclear program. Well, I spoke earlier with Colin Clark, the director of research from the Soufan Group.
All right,
I just wanted to get your thoughts.
We got BBC doing some more conversations. We just saw Chuck Schumer, C-SPAN came out. They just said Chuck Schumer is out now talking, saying Schumer on the war powers resolution in Iran says Congress and the American people are owed answers. No president should be allowed to unilaterally march this nation into war with erratic threats, no strategy, and no explanation
of any U.S. response. More importantly, I've demanded they lay out exactly what measures they're taking right now to keep our service members safe.
Give me a break, Chuck.
As I said Saturday night, Congress and the American people are owed answers. No president should be allowed to unilaterally march this nation into war with erratic threats, no strategy, no explanation.
He's not going to tell you anything, Chuck. You're not owed an explanation. At the moment it happened because you would have undermined the American operation just because you hate Trump so much. All right, so there's Schumer, who is getting into it. Let's see, we got CNN. Looks like they're back here a little bit on this, and then we'll hear from you. I see some great donos and super chats came in. Thank you so much for sending these. So we'll keep our eye on the news and we'll jump into your comments, but here is what CNN is saying right now. This looks like it's new and current. get the audio in.
We know that the Israeli prime minister was in a cabinet meeting this evening. Israeli media is reporting that ministers in the government has been told not to speak to the media as of now. So clearly something is afoot. The question is whether indeed the Israeli government and whether the Iranian government have in fact agreed to this ceasefire, which President Trump has announced in quite dramatic fashion. What I can tell you is happening right now are intense airstrikes in Iran being carried out by the Israeli military. We know that the Israeli military in just the last couple of hours issued evacuation warnings for parts of Tehran, the capital city of Iran. We know that blasts have been heard by our team on the ground there in just the last hour or so. And so what is clear is that if this ceasefire is indeed to go into effect in a matter of hours, these next hours will indeed be very, very busy and potentially very deadly as well. You often see this in the hours before a ceasefire actually takes effect. Both sides ramping up their attacks, trying to strike at any final targets that they would like to take down before that ceasefire goes into effect. It's been about 16 hours since we saw the last barrage of Iranian ballistic missiles. In just the last hour or so, we know that there were 4 Iranian drones that were intercepted by the Israeli military, but no big barrages of those ballistic missiles. But I think you can expect, Aaron, that if indeed this ceasefire becomes a reality in the later hours of today, then you will see at least another barrage of those ballistic missiles. And of course, the Israeli public very aware of that as well, and bracing for that possibility. Aaron?
All right, Jeremy, thank you very much. And of course, we don't know what will happen to U.S. interests as well in this, with those missiles launched at the U.S. base in Qatar hours ago. Out front now, Senator Chris Murphy of the Foreign Relations Committee. And Senator Murphy, so Trump says there's this complete and total ceasefire. We have, it seems to be, muzzling out of Israel, right? They're not talking, which would indicate, as Jeremy says, perhaps something. Explosions in Tehran,
Trump
but neither
is bad,
side speaking. Is this
gotta be
ceasefire
happy
real?
about the outcome here.
Well, I have no idea. I mean, what we know is that Donald Trump doesn't tell the truth a lot, so you can't rely on Donald Trump's statements. And frankly, you can't rely on what Iran says either. Remember, Iran may agree that it's not going to launch direct attacks against Israel or the United States, but Iran traditionally exercises power, lethal power, through its proxies. Its proxies inside Lebanon, its proxies inside Iraq. And so this is still going to be a very dangerous moment. Let's hope that this is a ceasefire that is real. Let's hope that this is an end, at least temporarily, to the hostilities. But let's also understand that Iran has agreed to a lot of things over the years because of the way in which it uses these terrorist groups, which are spread out all across the region, that are very close to U.S. forces. Anything official out of Tehran probably isn't worth, much more than the paper that it's written on.
Well, I mean, of course, you're also in the context of, we understand the Ayatollah is in a bunker because Netanyahu said he could take him out at any time, and Trump has talked about regime change. So does that mean that that's all over? Regime change is off the table? I mean, I'm only saying this in the context of some things are impossible to put back in the bottle. Sometimes when people show you who they are, they've shown you who they are. And it seems that we have passed such a moment, whether you're in a ceasefire or not.
Yeah, I think that's right. And listen, we still have not gotten, any damage assessments. We have a classified briefing in the Senate tomorrow afternoon where hopefully we'll get some questions answered. But, already you're seeing information that suggests, we did not deal a lethal blow to their nuclear program. They may still have as much as a half a ton of uranium enriched up to the 60% level, which is near what you need for a nuclear weapon. We may have just damaged Fordo. We may not have destroyed it. And so if that's the case, if their nuclear program is still basically intact, and now they know that, the only way the regime survives is by speeding towards that weapon, in the medium to long range, this might get worse for the United States, not better. So, we still don't even have all the facts to know how impactful this strike was, but it certainly is going to alter the calculus of the Iranian regime.
Right. And of course, the ceasefire is a pause to, we hear obviously leveled in the Ukraine war all the time, would be a pause to rebuild. But to your point about this enrichment, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, was just asked a few moments ago, and he deflected when he was asked the direct question, Senator, about whether the administration knows where Iran's highly enriched uranium is located, right? I mean, do they know they destroyed it? Do they even know where it is, right? Here's how he answered the question.
JD.
I think that's actually not the question before us. The question before us is, can Iran enrich the uranium to a weapons grade level? Our goal was to bury the uranium, and I do think the uranium is buried, but our goal was to eliminate the enrichment and eliminate their ability to convert that enriched fuel into a nuclear weapon.
So, Senator, he very clearly did not say that he knew where the uranium was, which would mean that obviously that would flow from there to not know how much there was or its state. You know, do you think that we know what we need to know here?
Well, again, I mean, we'll know more in the Senate tomorrow, but yes, that looks like a deliberate dodge. It does appear that the administration knows that it did not, in fact, eliminate all of, and maybe not even most of, their enriched uranium. Yes, if you have damaged some of their equipment that allows for you to continue to process and convert that uranium, there is a temporary benefit, but equipment is just equipment. It can be rebuilt. And what we have really done here is empower the Russians, because the Russians have always hinted at being more deeply allied with Iran and perhaps a nuclear research component to that alliance. If Russia decided that it was going to help Iran rebuild their nuclear program, we wouldn't be setting them back years. We would probably only be setting them back months. And at a moment when we really don't want to give Russia and Vladimir Putin any more leverage, we've handed them some pretty substantial leverage because the uranium's still there. Likely, all Iran needs is some new equipment. Russia's got plenty of that.
Yeah, and of course, that meeting today in Moscow, so important. Senator, I really appreciate your time, and thank you so very much. Next, the Iranian Supreme Leader, as we've said, right now hiding in a bunker, reportedly preparing for the possibility of his own potential death and assassination. But who would replace him? Plus, the Strait of Hormuz, right behind where I'm standing tonight, one of the most important waterways in the world. Tonight, Iran is threatening as part of...
All right, so we'll keep our eye on the cables, but we'll swap back to the audio if anything interesting pops. But, my friends, I also want to say thank you. I saw some great super chats come in, and I want to shout out a couple comments. So Bucky's is here. Bucky's is Rome says, just like I predicted, Republicans like this are willing to sell out. If Democrats give them what they want, she literally says it in the article talking about Murkowski, suggesting she could become an independent in the right circumstance. Lisa Murkowski becoming an independent. Don't you love how they all just do commercials at the exact same time? So no matter where you switch, you're going to get hit with commercials. So we got a couple memes here that have come in. And this is the Murkowski comment. We got this one from Bucky's is Rome. He says, when Trump comes out against Iranian atom bombs, here's what they're going to post on their profile photos now. I stand with the nuclear holocaust. Probably see that on bumper stickers. Bucky's says, Democrats are suddenly worried that Iranian terror sleeper cells will now attack the USA from within. The same Democrats who let them all in. The same Democrats who want you to be unarmed. Bucky says liberals, after they just replaced their Palestinian flag with a Mexican flag, and now they have to find an Islamic Iranian flag too. Oh, gosh. Bucky says, here's Iran in a year. Bucky's, Bass Pro Shops, Walmart, Costco, Dollar General, Chipotle. We got Bucky's is Rome. Says, everyone is concerned about the Middle East becoming destabilized if the mullahs fall in Iran haven't been given serious thought to how destabilized it would become if Israel thought that there was a nuke-tipped missile heading towards them from Iran and they responded in kind. Says if anyone wants to see what happened when Iran launched missiles at the base today and how the soldiers responded, here you go. There's a link from USA WTFM. They were hyped up and on point. Chat with me says, Rob, I just dozed off when you yelled, yes, I think I might have hit one of Elon's satellites. You and rub some dirt on it might need to check orbit for me. Well, happy to send you with a little dose of adrenaline over there. Chat with me. Thanks for jumping into it. Laura Ingram's got somebody on, some retired person. Bonnie says the Supreme Court allows Trump to swiftly deport migrants to third countries. That sounds like tremendous news. We'll talk about that one tomorrow. I saw Kristi Noem posted about that as we were scrolling around. And just as the show started, or maybe I think in the middle of the show, it came down. What's up, Bonnie? Thank you for that. Mock Schnell, bringing in 50 membos. Mock Schnell, thanks for bringing these people in. Welcome aboard, 50 new friends Charles, Jake, Carrie, Goho, Shane, what's up? Karina, T. Surrett, what's up? Lady, Bruce Campbell, Lovey Brown, Swede, Cat, De La Yuma, Drunken Sailor, what's up? Victoria, Sean, Anthony, Ultimates, Aaron, Blue Star, Amiana, what's up? Nathan Thompson. We got Cajun Child, Butterfly, Bee Stings, Cornelius Buttknuckle is here. Charlie, what's up? Pamela, Tabitha, Gundam, Vessel, Ran At It Channel Names is here. Delab, Sharon, Chad, Scruffy, Critical, Christopher. We got Bill, Twitchy, The Real Blue Juice. We got Rachel's here. Sandy, Not Nigma, Phantom, Madison, Travis, Pedro, Emil, Troy, Diana, and Dixie Bell, all gifted members courtesy of Mock Schnell. Mock Schnell, thank you for doing that. 50 new friends. Welcome aboard. We'll see you on the members only streams. What's up, Doan? Trump thanked Tehran for what? Tehran wants to look tough, but to avoid a real pretext and to make America look weak for not responding in kind. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if there is a ceasefire. Officially, Trump says there is, so we'll just take him at his word on it. But I don't know that maybe the Iranians came to terms. Maybe they came to terms and there's more to the ceasefire. I don't know. Bucky's is Rome says, something not getting much play. The Senate parliamentarian is siding with Democrats and using the Byrd rule to strip everything out of the big, beautiful bill. If Republicans had spines, could they pass it anyway? And we all know they don't care because it gives them cover to say, well, we can't pass immigration and voting reform because the rules are the rules. I doubt when Democrats get back in power, they wouldn't care and pass one of their bills anyways. From Bucky's. Concert Chick, what's up? Thank you, Watcher family, for the prayers. Concert Chick, amazing to see you. I am finally out of the hospital and home. The prayers work, baby. Still have a lot of recovery ahead, but so happy for progress. Thank you, everyone. And American Heart Colors in there. Thank you, Concert Chick. We love you. Glad you're home. Bonnie shared this from John. Ceasefire in the house. Thank you, John, for letting us know. Yeah, thank you guys for flagging that. I saw you flagged that for me. Thank you for that. We've got more. Knox is here. Hey, happy Monday, all. Iran was meeting with Witkoff, and they were scheduled to meet in Oman on the 15th of June. I think there was going to be a deal, Knox, and then they called it off. I saw a tweet about that. I didn't read the article, but apparently, like, Trump got a call from Israel, or Benjamin Netanyahu was like, and something changed. Knox, unions have been criminal enterprises since the 1950s. Jimmy Hoffa was never found, but some say he's buried in Soldiers Field where the Bears play. Yeah. Union member with their little, they're trying to take over the country and he's their new general. Milo Phone Bill, what's up? Let's hope that Iran is done with their extinction burst. It's like kicking the Coke machine after it quits handing out free sodas. All you're going to do is hurt your foot. William Hestelo, what's up, William? Hey, Chris Wright is on with Fox News. All right, so let's check over on this one. He is a person with some importance.
For decades. For natural gas as well. Everyone's predicting for sure over $100 oil is just around the corner. Then we have strong leadership from our president, precision strikes over the weekend to take out Iran's key nuclear facilities. Everyone thinks that's another $20 on the price of oil. And here we are Monday evening, and oil dropped below $70 a barrel. And more importantly for American consumers, wholesale gasoline was down over 10 cents today and diesel down 15%. That is the collective benefits of President Trump's energy dominance agenda and his strong, clear, peace through strength leadership style. It's just transforming the Middle East.
Now, Mr. Secretary, for those of us who were young politicos back in the 80s, and I happen to work for President Reagan, this is a Reagan-esque move on the part of President Trump. I mean, the America First agenda at play. There were a lot of people on the right who were very concerned, and I had my concerns. I don't like any military involvement if we can avoid it, but he made a decision that there was no good reason to avoid this military engagement, that it was critical for America First.
I love the Reagan-esque comparison. Ronald Reagan just looked at the Soviet Union completely differently than all the leaders before him. He saw the black and white. He saw the good and evil. And the only way you win is by being clear and strong and bold. And he did just that. Donald Trump got elected to do the same thing with American energy policy and with American foreign policy. Iran has been a mess. They've been the cause of all the trouble and instability for 46 years now in this entire region of the world. He didn't follow the old playbook, the Biden playbook of appeasement, ask them nicely to do less bad behavior, don't enforce the sanctions and give Iran a bunch of money. That didn't work. President Trump came in with a very different approach, and we're still in the midst of this, but just dramatically different results in the Middle East and for American energy buyers.
Now, Mr. Secretary, we're just getting new details in about the ceasefire. Reuters is reporting that President Trump brokered the agreement with a phone call with Netanyahu this afternoon, and that Vance, Rubio, and Envoy Witkoff held direct and indirect talks over the last few days with the Iranians. Again, to your point, he just decided to abandon this idea that you don't treat Iran like they're real people there. And he's like, they are people. They want a better life. Someone there wants a better life for these people. I'm going to try to play to that while I play America's strength on the world stage. But the old guard, they didn't go the Trump way, and they talked him down for years and years, and no one else could have pulled this off. And again, assuming this all holds.
I agree, Laura. Just a totally transformative style. You know, President Trump's one constituency is the American people. And when he does foreign policy, who's his constituency in Iran? 90 million Iranians. That was, this is an educated, technically successful, pretty doing well society not long ago, and it's gone backwards for 46 years. Those Iranians, they want peace and trade and prosperity just like we want in the United States, just like the rest of the Middle East does. Maybe they're going to get a taste of it.
Well, they're going to have to step up and find their new leader. Mr. Secretary, the president said drill, baby, drill today or yesterday when he was concerned about the price perhaps of oil going up.
Are you doing it?
This seems like great news so far. Thank you very much for joining us. And coming up, President Iran has agreed to this ceasefire with Israel. We're going to get reaction from Capitol Hill. Senator Eric Schmidt is here. And what are the Democrats saying tonight? Coming up.
All right, so Eric Schmidt will be back. In the meantime, let's continue on saying what you say about all of this. This one came in from Michael Hull and William Hestelau. What's up, William? Thank you for sharing this one. Says Trump just announced Iran caved and there will be a full ceasefire according to news media. And that's a nice welcome development if we get it. Michael Hull, how is the union not being charged for hiring an illegal immigrant? So we asked about that, yeah. And apparently since he had that withholding of removal order, he had valid status based on that withholding, right? And he was not removed previously for a number of reasons, but since he was here and he had a withholding of removal to Guatemala or El Salvador, he used that and parlayed that into work status and was lawful, evidently. Felix de la Cruz, once the judge in the criminal case of this Waite biasly writes a legal puff piece like this, you know that the system is not broken, it's dead. Imagine if a judge wrote that for you. If you've ever been through this process. Never happened. Peaches, first, or like a J6er. Like imagine if a judge wrote that for a January 6th defendant. What's your charge of corruptly? He said it says documents. They didn't touch any documents at all. So why are you charging them with 1512C? Losers. No judge. I'm like, we're pretty good. Except one judge. And then, of course, he won on that. Peaches, first they changed the definition of woman, and now they're changing the definition of human trafficking. He was just taking all those kids to Disneyland in Maryland for some rides. Says, Lord help us all. These people are insane. Yeah. Looks the other way and doesn't give the cops the benefit of the doubt. Gives Kilmar and his weird affidavit the benefit of the doubt and calls it presumption of innocence for an illegal when there's a stack of evidence that shows he's guilty. Ravicus, hey, here's just a break from all the drama for a minute. Nom nom. Rhubarb is the best. You know, that actually does look pretty good. But that's a feature of things that are deadly, is they're enticing. So we know better. Tony D, hey, just a break from all the drama for a minute. If you're experiencing some sort of a poison, call the poison control. Felix de la Cruz, Typical Democrat judge wants child's blood when it comes to children as victims. The child must bleed or be assaulted. You get did he lose a finger? Then he's okay. For it to count. And they hope that the child is no longer breathing, then it's a crime. Well, where is he? Where is the 15-year-old that got trafficked? Since you can't find him, I guess we can't harm the trafficker. Like, what? And again, it's not conviction status. It's just detention. It's just preponderance of the evidence. It's super easy. Rubos, RubosSaltShop.com. Have you gotten your salt from the bottom of the French Ocean, or are you eating store brand salt? Hey, Rubos. Trump says complete and total ceasefire. Thank you for flagging it for us, the Rubos. Felix de la Cruz. What's up, Felix de la Cruz? If only Charles Manson, John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, and every Nazi at Nuremberg had Judge Holmes write this for them. Unfreaking believable. I know. She should be a defense attorney. What is this? All right, Peaches. I think it is fitting that the left's Jesus is in fact a human trafficking, wife beater, and child abuser. That sounds like Satan to me, which is Joel 3:3. Wow, yeah. I mean, you saw the image. It's like got Catholic features to it. It's weird that they're doing that. Highland Bolt. Pfft, this is a real photo. This is what I wear before I go to bed every night. It says, keep up the good work. I'm too busy to watch live often, but make sure to watch twice daily for the Watching the Watchers fix. Amazing, Highland Bowl. Thank you for that. I don't know how you hacked into my system and got that photo, but yeah, it's real. We do a special show late at night before bed. Anyways, hey, thank you for that, Highland Bull. Tara Rayner. Hey, 25 months as a member. Thank you, Tara, for being here for so long, coming up on multiple babies. Hi, all. Karen Reed is free, so I'm back. Missed y'all. We miss our Karen Readers out there. Welcome back to our channel. Don't ever leave us again. Felix de la Cruz. Here we go with J6, but where is the anger for June 6th? Yeah, or June 7th, right? The real J6. BSers of the Democrat Party, my Capitol Police friends, you believe that crap? Boots for the foot deep. Boots for the foot deep. We got Doan. Iran regime ceasefire is a lame attempt to avoid being toppled by its own citizens, who by reports show an 80% disapproval rate. Interesting. So you think that this is just a head fake, essentially? We're getting the heck blown out of us. Our people are mad, so we'll just say it's a ceasefire and we'll negotiate or fabricate something else behind the scenes. Felix de la Cruz. I want my time back. What a loser Democrat. Trying gotchas. DeLauro, who voted for her? Good question. Yeah, good question. People in Connecticut, I guess. All right, we got Eric Schmidt is here. Let's turn our attention over to this fella.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible. It's a real masterclass, Laura, and I think they'll be writing books about this, the way to end the 12-day war. It was a precision, very limited engagement. Those B-2s that took off from my home state of Missouri executed something pretty remarkable in the air for 30 hours, basically dropped those bunker busters on something the size of a wheelbarrow to take out their nuclear program. Again, very precise, very limited. And then President Trump, which I think is very unique to him, certainly the presidents over the last 30 years, he immediately got on the phone and tried to broker peace. He is the peace president. That's his natural inclination. And who would have thought, if you were sitting here just a couple of years ago, that you'd have Israel and Iran at the table here with a ceasefire, Hezbollah, Hamas completely wiped out, the Abraham Accords maybe on the march.
Right.
President Trump's done something I think that nobody could have imagined, and he did it in a way that's true to sort of his American realism, right? He takes these enemies as they are, these actors on the world stage as they are, not as an ideologue, not as somebody who wants permanent regime change or get pulled into a Middle East war. There were a lot of voices out there here in permanent Washington that wanted more engagement. And President Trump, you know, I think he had that restraint and that instinct to do what needed to be done to bring about peace, and it's pretty dramatic, and it's incredible, really.
Yeah, it reminded me of that scene from Independence Day when Trump calls for peace and that alien grabs that other dude by the neck with that tentacle and smashes him up in the window. Peace. No peace. I felt like there was like 1,000 John Boltons out there and Lindsey Grahams and the rest of them all feeling that very expression, wanting more bombing until the end of days.
As he did that, he's right. He saved lives. He saved a lot of lives. And Lord knows what would have happened. If Tehran had gotten nuclear weapons and the mullahs had gotten their way, that would have been a Damocles sword hanging over the necks of the West and the region, certainly for our lifetime, our children's lifetime.
That's right, and I think he did it in a way, again, that was very limited with the specific goal of bringing about peace. This really wasn't about engaging a broader war. He was very clear about that. But again, then his ability to get on the phone with world leaders and say, and get us to a point now where in 24 hours you're going to have an end to a war that could have gone on for much longer. Now all this needs to hold, but he is the embodiment of, I think, a new foreign policy that many of us, including me, you've got J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, who talking about this kind of realistic approach, getting away from this wandering Wilsonian adventurism that's just dominated the foreign policy culture here. It's an incredible day and a great feat.
It's what he campaigned on in 2016,
Yep.
and that's why they hated him in 2015, and that's why they wanted him out of office as soon as he was sworn in. So, Senator, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right, you saw Raskins down there at the bottom on MSNBC. Let's see what he has to say.
The House basically don't have standing to go to court to challenge all of these things because the courts have very restrictive standing doctrines when it comes to members of Congress suing to just get the law enforced. So we're piggybacking on them and we're filing amicus briefs alongside them and
all the
winning,
weaponized lawfare
in
lawsuits?
a whole bunch of these cases. It's really impressive. And we just won one from Maryland versus Trump about AmeriCorps. They think they can just dismantle federal agencies, whether it's USAID, the Consumer Financial Protection
it's called
Bureau,
the Unitary Executive,
or AmeriCorps. And that's lots of young people's lives that they've poured into that. Lots of communities.
Oh, they can go find other jobs elsewhere. All right, so that's Raskin, who's doing the very Raskin thing over there. Looking at the state of Hormuz over on CNN and more. All right, so Sheila Poo and Spuds says Representative Dean's district contains 2 blue state schools. From Spuds. Sheila Poo. This is what Mayorkas did for the 4 years he was there, in addition to Garland and every other cabinet member who served under Biden. From Sheila Poo. Deluxe Knight. What's up, Deluxe Knight? 20 membos coming in over on Rumble. Thank you, Deluxe Knight. Farmer in the house. Bringing in Torque Wrench, DJ, Fate, R. Hirsch. What's up, buddy? Hello, Kitty. Aaron's dad. What's up, Ziggy Girl? Mean Green, Joe Maz, Free to Speech, good old one. Les Coaster, One Citizen D, Kids Today, Aldia, Androdite, Cadino. We got Piso Pon and Mick McCludy. Gifted membos, courtesy of Deluxe Knight over on Rumble. Thank you for doing that. Deluxe Knight. Doan is here, says China cringing at Tehran blocking Hormuz. That means no oil for them from Doan. We got Tim Jake. Today, SCOTUS stayed District Judge Brian Murphy's injunction blocking deportation of individuals to third countries without prior notice. All libs dissenting. That's going to be great. Brian Murphy was that weird judge who really wanted that gay Venezuelan to come back after that he was getting weird looks when he was going to the grocery store down there in Guatemala. Tim Jake, thanks for flagging it for us, my man. We'll cover that tomorrow. I want to read through that in detail because that's a big win. Diamond Gun. Did Laura get a lip injection? She's looking goofy, says Diamond Gun. She looks beautiful as ever. Hey, Ravicus, just pray to God some rogue alphabet agency doesn't do something to sabotage this. So glad for the ceasefire. Me too. I hope it sticks. I was sick of the war already. It was like 48 hours. Chubby Stubby. Sure sounds like old Chucky wants our enemies to know our military strategies. They just hate Trump. They sound ridiculous because they really can't say like this was bad because a lot of people in their party want this to happen too. It's part of the uniparty efforts. So they really can't say it's bad. So they just have to say Trump is a liar for whatever reason. Peaches. What's up, Peaches? Okay, Peaches this morning sent in. We were talking this morning on the members only stream. Sorry for all the scrolls here. Let me spare you on that. Says, this morning we were talking about some interesting things about Christianity and Judaism and Islam and all the things. And Peaches shared this morning. We were talking about Ted Cruz. Yeah, and so here's some context. Ted Cruz is well-meaning, but he's not an Israeli. Christians are Leah, and the Israel is Rachel in the story of Jacob. The Gentiles must come in full before God softens Israel's hearts again. Peaches wrote this. And I was asking, well, if the Jews are the chosen people and Ted Cruz believes that the Jews are the chosen people, then why doesn't Ted Cruz just become a Jew? She says, well, you don't want to become a Jew. I'm sure with all due respect to the Jews, we need to be grateful that the Jews are being blinded to Jesus' salvation because it allows the Christians time to be added to the family. So I don't understand it, to be honest with you. I don't get it. Apparently it's like a sequential thing, trying to figure it out. Swanky Mo says, make no mistake, God works with the chosen to win wars. Jericho was won by the Israelites. It will be evil who creates it. Yeah, so some pretty heavy stuff. I don't know exactly how it all works. Like, if you're the chosen people, can you become a chosen person or are you just unchosen? And like, if you're Ted Cruz and you want to go fight for Israel, does your policy in America reflect that over your interest to America? It's where we're having questions about that. I don't really know. Hey, and we're just going to learn about it in public because why not? Diamond Gun. Thank you for that. And so Peaches comes back up, says, following up Romans 11:25. I do not want you to be ignorant of this mystery, brothers and sisters, so that you may not be conceited. Israel has experienced a hardening in part until the full number of Gentiles has come in. Romans 11:11 says, I ask, did they stumble to fall beyond recovery? Not at all. Rather, because of their transgression, salvation has come to the Gentiles to make Israel envious. And says, Paul explains, very nice segue, gif right there, says, Paul explains that Israel's temporary blindness serves a divine purpose, enabling Gentile inclusion in God's plan. Please look into Dr. Michael Heiser. He is really helpful with biblical understanding. All right, so Peaches just, I think, started World War III with the Jews out there, so sounds good. Anyways, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. How does it work? Like, is there a grandfather clause for Christians or for the Jews? How do you grandfather in everybody? I don't really know. Hey, Elvis of Dallas, but thank you for educating me. I'm very interested in it. And Boopsy shared a Catholic.com article, since your boy's Catholic, and I'm going to read through it. Elvis of Dallas. What's up, Elvis of Dallas? Shout out to our friends in Dallas. Johnny Appleseed. What's up, Mackie? Joel and Kathy Davison are here. Electric Messiah and Laura Chamberlain, all gifted members, courtesy of Elvis of Dallas. Thank you, Elvis. Hey, Rob on Rumble says, hey, Chuck Schumer, how many bombs did Obama drop in how many countries? 7 countries, probably 20,000 bombs. How much of $1.7 billion did Obama give to Iran to free the prisoners and fund Iran's nuclear program? And Felix de la Cruz says, Republicans are feckless wet noodle willies that wallow in their impotence. That is a heck of a statement, right? That's a nice sentence. Republicans are feckless wet noodle willies that wallow in their impotence. It's like Shakespeare, baby. Typical rhino wussies. Felix de la Cruz, Reagan bombed Gaddafi into silence for 21 years. Remember anyone? Viva Cristo Rey. What's up, Viva Cristo Rey? Welcome aboard as a membo. Great to see you. Doan says, yeah, you think Iran will remove death to Israel and the U.S. from its official charter now? LMAO. I don't know. We'll have to find out. Probably not. Felix de la Cruz, never rub another man's rhubarb. The Joker from Batman 1989 movie. The one with Jack Nicholson. He was great. Yeah, that was a great one. Mark Clemens. Here's some dark humor from Tim Pool. Breaking. District Court Judge orders Trump to restart war with Iran. Ceasefire was committed without due process. So, got to reverse all that. Rick D says there's chaos at a music festival over there in France. That doesn't sound good. Not good at all. Deluxe Knight, what's up? Hey, says just part of the daily lifestyle of farming in the house. Lost 4 bearings on our dick today. It's a farming device, okay? Tillage and buckwheat planting have come to a halt until fixed things are fixed. Look at that heavy equipment, baby. Well, get those bearings back on your dick as soon as you can and get back out there, farmer. Hey, what's going on? Rice Baby, Bruce Rice Baby. What's up, Bruce Rice Baby? Bringing in 20 new membos. Nanny, what's up? Eden H. What's up, Steve? We got Claudina, KJ. What's up, Kyle? Jerry, Faraz. Trudy's here. Richard coming in. We got Joseph, Rosie, Ghost Warrior, T. Ree. What's up, Patty? Dan Nikovsky. W. Kilobyte, all gifted membos, courtesy of Bruce Rice Baby. Thank you, Bruce, for bringing in 20 membos. Peaches, can they make lawfare illegal? It should be. Yeah, well, they're using the law. Like that's the exploit. It's like America is getting exploited by foreigners who are using our Constitution against us by saying that our Constitution applies to them. And it doesn't. Peaches. Okay, clarifying. The Jews are the chosen, but they're persecuted. We are blessed with being grandfathered in, okay, until their eyes are opened. So when we get the blessing, just like Christ was crucified, and we get the salvation. Oh my gosh. All right. I'm going to have to make a flow chart for this. Thank you, Peaches. Maybe we need a mind map for this. Hey, Deluxe Knight. Disc, I hate auto pen. Auto corrections. Oh, it's his disc, not his dick. Okay. Now I feel bad for saying that word. I thought it was like a real thing, you know, like if you're on a farm and you've got some chickens running around, there's another name for the chickens, you know, like when they do their cock-a-doodle-doos on the farm, you know, I don't know. Anyways, hey, Rick D. Wow, Diddy's lawyer told the judge they will be calling no witnesses in his defense. Yeah, if their case is crap. I've not been following it. Once we got into that, you know, really deep into that baby oil testimony, it's like, all right, enough of that. Peaches, God is blessing the Christians so they will become jealous. In the end times, they will become believers as well. All right, well, got to figure that out. Thank you, Peaches, for the information on what's going on out there. And my friends, thank you so much for sending those in. Here's what's cooking over there on the cables. A lot of the same stuff. Trump's post, we already read it. They're all like the same show. Isn't it weird? Like, how are they all showing the same tweet? Been fully agreed to. All of them at the same time, even BBC. How does that work? Do you notice that? It's not a new tweet. It's the old tweet. Then they cut back to the talking heads. J.D. Vance is back. This was, I think, earlier. Let's listen to him.
Missile capability of Iran that threatened the country of Israel. For the Iranians, I think this is a new opportunity to actually pursue the path of peace. As I said yesterday, what the Iranians have showed through their support of terror networks, through their now failed effort to build a nuclear weapon, is that they're just not very good at war. And I think the president really hit the reset button and said, look, let's actually produce long-term peace for the region. That's always been his goal. I actually think when we look back, we will say the 12-day war was an important reset moment for the entire region.
Reuters is also reporting that Iran has officially agreed to the terms of the ceasefire deal just hours after they fired missiles.
All right, so that was from an earlier conversation. So that's Jesse Waters and his show well underway. And so, my friends, I think we're pretty well up to speed today and really appreciate you joining us as we went through all of this. Members, stick around. We're going to hang out, debrief, take some locals comments, and see what else you have to say. So YouTube members, just stick around, hit the refresh button on the channel homepage, and we'll see you back in a few minutes. Otherwise, locals, hang out. We'll pause. We'll have the outro song, and then we'll be back. And like literally, look. So now CNN is playing the J.D. Vance clip. CNN just played Fox just played that clip. Now CNN is playing the clip. Isn't that weird? Why do they do that? Why are they copying each other? Because they're just copy and pasters. That's why. All right. So my friends, it has been a beautiful stream. Thank you for being here. Thanks for subscribing to our channel if you haven't already. Thanks for going through the war and the legal battles together with us here. We are going to pause here for the evening. We're coming back tomorrow, though. Before we wrap it up, we want to thank our mods and our meme smiths. What's up to Carrie B, K Bean? Shout out to John and Donut Mind Me modding the fort down for us. We want to thank Janek, Neuro D, Dog Digger over on the Rumbles. Big shout outs to Geegum Geegum, Just Rhonda, and Elliot Dockmaster in the house. We appreciate everybody who makes this show oh so nice and orderly around here. But that is where we'll leave it here on the day. It's a Monday. We're going to have a jamming week together. I hope yours is off to an incredible start. Tonight, we will leave it there, but we're coming back tomorrow to get into it again. And in order to do that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through the scripted ruse. Together